Hello. The news of Channel 1 Television presents an evening overview of the main events of the day. First, briefly about the most important ones. The Prime Minister of Russia, Viktor Chernomyrdin, speaking before the Federative Council, expressed himself against instituting a state of emergency in the economy. By the end of March, Russia may join the program of NATO Partnership for Peace, stated Pavel Grachev after his meeting in Moscow with the American Minister of Defense. In Vladivostok, a scandal continues over Mayor Cherepkov, who was dismissed for bribery. Polish Solidarność is unfolding a strike campaign threatening stronger actions in the event that the government does not accept its conditions. Severe flooding in Lithuania. Waters have covered a territory of 40,000 hectares. The basic problems in the Russian economy are directly connected with non-payments, which are now a clear indicator of the depth and intensity of the crisis processes. This was emphasized today by the Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin speaking in the higher chamber of parliament. The information of the head of government on the problem of non-payments was heard in the afternoon, but in the morning the deputies delved into other problems. The higher chamber of the Federative Council today appealed to the peoples of Ingushetia and Northern Ossetia. In the document especially emphasizes the need to lay down weapons and resolve the years of accumulated problems in a peaceful way. This was stated to journalists by the chairman of the Federative Council, Vladimir Shumeika. He also stated that a special commission will be created on the further studying of the problems in this region. And after that, it is necessary to present proposals to the President of Russia. Vladimir Shumeika reminded that previously, to resolve conflicts, many measures were undertaken, but not all were adhered to. So the Speaker of the head chamber now feels it is necessary that all three branches of government jointly adopted a decision on this question and took it under firm control. In the afternoon, the deputies heard the question on non-payments by the government. With information, the head of the government, Viktor Chernomyrdin, spoke. He noted that the situation in the country remains complicated, especially the credit and debts have reached astronomical heights. The Premier of Government in detail told the deputies about a complex of planned measures to resolve the severe problem. Today, what we need is not discussions or blaming anyone else, but in a practical plan we must resolve our problems in the economy. The most important factor is time, and measures which are necessary to be adopted today, which we have planned, are parallel to the legislative line, are parallel to the executive line. Measures which must be adopted now. If we've made a decision, we must adopt it. If we made another decision, we must adopt it. And the government will now work this way. In the end of the workday, the Federative Council, after 2 days of discussion, adopted the resolution on the question of the Prosecutor General. To the President of Russia, it was proposed within 1 week to submit to the Chamber his impression on the resignation of Alexei Kazanik and also to appoint for ratification by the Federative Council a new candidate for the post of Prosecutor General. Speaking in the Federative Council, Viktor Chernomyrdin today also announced that he signed the project of the state budget for 1994 and sent this document to the President and the State Duma. The deficit of the federal budget is planned in the amount of a little more than 62 trillion rubles, or around 9% of the gross domestic product. With a new interior of the sessions auditorium and a project of new agrarians, the White House greeted the members of government today. And the agenda also cannot be attributed to the already discussed matters. Without extensive work, which happens rarely, adopted and sent for ratification to the State Duma was the budget of the pension fund for the first half of the year. Obviously, it was formed on the lowest limit of which was possible. Therefore, no one disagreed with it. The government understood that violating payments to 37 million pensioners, that is, essentially 1/5 of the population, could detonate the situation. Therefore, they agreed with the tariffs of forming insurance revenues to supplement the fund and also with expenditures to conduct indexation. By predictions of the Ministry of Economics, the price index in 1994 will grow to 4.8 times. Therefore, looking to preserve compensation pensions as of the 1st of February of 20,000 rubles and as of the 1st of May, 29,600 rubles. Apart from that, at the meeting, the project law was ratified on the defense of the population on territories of emergency situation, and the possibility of Russia's joining the Framework Convention of the United Nations on changing the climate. During the last years, the greenhouse effect on the planet has raised the temperature by 0.5 degrees. Therefore, Russia was proposed jointly with other countries to participate in measures which would retard the increase of atmospheric pollution. With a proposal to convene an assembly of the people and citizens of Russia, one of the main goals of which would be the search for a political platform of citizen accord in society, to the president and the premier of the chamber and the premier and the chairman of the Federative Council appealed today the chairman of the Federative Council, Ramazan Abdullaptipov. He told Interfox that he feels this could be a forum of social agreement at which practical steps could be defined for the rebirth of Russia. In Moscow, the creation of a movement was announced, Agreement in the Name of Russia, in an appeal to the citizens of Russia of Valery Zorkin that speaks about the necessity for social agreement among all forces, movements, ideologies, faiths, which renounce violence and racism and nationalism. The text of the appeal was signed by representatives of the agrarian, communist, democratic parties of Russia and also several parliamentarians and social activists. The leader of the Communist Party, Gennady Zyuganov, emphasized that the issue is to create a broad left-centrist coalition. And at the same time, outside of the text of the appeal, Valery Zorkin noted that the movement of accord in the name of Russia has as a goal to prevent possible palace coups. Journalists attended to this extremely seriously. I didn't pursue the aim of raising hysteria, and I didn't want especially to attract attention to this. I was simply stating that there are these two tendencies in Russia which are obvious, either a junta palatial coup tendency or that peaceful way which we propose. The aide of the President of Russia, Georgy Satara, feels it is premature to assess the new social movement accord in the name of Russia. The text of the appeal is clear, and its aims are noble, as stated, said Satarov in an interview to Interfox. The issue is how sincere these statements are, and this only life itself can show. The chairman of the Presidium of the Russian Fund of Culture, Nikita Mikhalkov, in his statement to Intertas, categorically refuted his participation in the appeal to the citizens of Russia distributed yesterday. Since, under the document, there were no further signatures, the correspondent of Intertas turned for clarification to Vasily Lipitsky. He stated that he didn't sign the document since he and Rudskoy were simply informed of the presence of the signatures under the text, although the deputy did add that he considered the general aim of the announcement acceptable, as it didn't, and he didn't remove his signature. The authors of the appeal, according to him, rushed excessively without fully working out the text. Russia could join the concept Partnership for Peace by the end of this month. This was stated to the journalist by the Minister of Defense of Russia, Pavel Grachev, after his meeting today with the American Minister of Defense, William Perry, who arrived in Moscow. Expert groups are already completing work on our approach to the joining of Russia to the concept Partnership for Peace, said the Russian Minister of Defense. Based on the uniqueness of Russia, we will be ready by the end of this month to join this concept, he emphasized. A meeting of old friends, the renewal of the spirit of cooperation, and the meeting at Elba. One can't otherwise describe these meetings of the Ministers of Defense of Russia and the United States. The meeting of the two ministers was brief, but obviously well prepared and well planned in advance. The delegation and its full staff discussed the situation in Bosnia, Russia's participation in NATO's program Partnership for Peace, joint peacekeeping actions, the problem of decreasing nuclear weapons, and also a broad circle of questions connected with the establishment of partnership relationships between the military departments of the two countries. The spirit of partnership and cooperation will accompany the visit of William Perry during the coming week in his tour of Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and Belarus. William Perry is known in the USA as a supporter of the cutting down of the numbers in the army and to restructure weaponry to a more qualitative technical level. The same opinion is held by the new authorities of the Russian Ministry of Defense, and probably here they will find a common language. And yet, the most important issues today at the meetings of the two ministers of defense were discussed during the 15 minutes during which they spoke face-to-face. Probably the same exchange of opinions on the developing political situation in Russia and the adoption vis-a-vis with the level of the development of the situation, cardinally new decisions and steps on the part of the Americans. Evidently, everything that happened during these 15 minutes behind these doors will be the hub of military cooperation between the United States and Russia this year and for future perspective. must be among the first and most energetic participants in partnership with NATO. This was stated by the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Andrei Kozyrev, after a meeting with William Perry. Andrei Kozyrev quoted the words of William Perry spoken during his talks about that all countries striving to join the NATO program Partnership for Peace are equal. But it is obvious that Russia is a great regime with special interests, said Andrei Kozyrev, and it would be strange if we were late or delayed in some way in this way, said the minister, having in mind the NATO program. This is a military naval base in Philadelphia on the east coast of the USA and was to be closed next year. And the American economy must also economize, but that would mean the loss of jobs for several thousands of people. Possibly this will not happen if a new order comes through. And here in Philadelphia, from the scaffolds emerged that same cruiser Varyak. And now it is planned to dismantle for scrap those written-off Russian military ships. The price from $147 to $800 per ton. According to the New York Times, talks about this in America were conducted by a representative of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Boris Ivanov. However, according to official information we received in Washington, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had no relationship to this possible deal. True, why suddenly would a foreign political department be occupied with the sale of ships for scrap? The representative of the Ministry of Defense of Russia in the United States also knows nothing, and I was told the written-off ships don't belong to the military any longer. We don't know anything about this. The trade representative of Russia, Robert Razana, found out about the project to scrap our ships from American newspapers. It's better to dismantle them at home. That would mean employment. We could sort the metal in groups. In each ship, there is a lot of colored metal, which is more expensive, and we'd receive a greater benefit. And yet, here they're already talking about 40 or 50 military ships, which may be towed to Philadelphia. The project is being discussed by members of Congress and the authorities of the state of Pennsylvania. As is told, the Minister of Defense of the United States, Perry, will raise the question on scrapping Russian ships in the USA during talks in Moscow. Possibly then we'll find out who really answers for the fate of those ships. Meanwhile, in Washington, where the Minister of Nuclear Energy of the Russian Federation, Viktor Mikhailov, is located, the Russian and American sides have reached an agreement on the immediate termination of Russia's development of enriched plutonium-239. Simultaneously, it was announced of Russia's intention and the United States as well to hold joint inspections of objects at which plutonium-rich components are stored from dismantled nuclear warheads. Development of further plutonium at the 3 industrial reactors in Russia, in Tomsk and Krasnoyarsk, will be discontinued at the end of this year. For the construction workers of Kaska Narigia, the Great Lent has been going on for 5 months. There has been no salary and no pancakes for Pancake Week. They promise by Nowruz, New Year, according to us, not in sums, but in porridge. Despite the hydro resources and the absence of oil and gas, the only hope for energy, and that means true political independence of Kyrgyzstan, even these things are at a standstill, like this excavator, which is going nowhere. The government has promised, despite its feebleness, to finish the construction of Oshkomir gas and didn't complete the Kambaratinskaya. And life continues only in Shalom Basai, and that is only because here the Hydro Energy Construction Company achieved the right to sell energy and continued to build using that profit. And even here they had their hands and feet tied to sell only in Kyrgyzstan and by the price delivered from above, and from there also the form of payment. In meat, in milk and butter. That is how we will pay salary within the next while, in natural products. But you won't go far this way. Private Western companies could have risked some capital, but only under the guarantee that in Bishkek they also wouldn't have their arms twisted to force acceptance of payment in potatoes. The introduction of new levels of customs tariffs for goods imported into Russia, in the opinion of Yuri Lushkov, brings a serious blow to the economy of the largest cities of the country. This step of the government, feels the mayor of Moscow, stimulates a new branch of inflation, which will undoubtedly lead to an increase in prices and the cost of living, and also will attract the import of low-quality goods from underdeveloped countries, and will create a wall for goods of solid foreign firms. According to Itartaz, a statement of the mayor is being prepared for the 3 major cities of Russia, Moscow, Petersburg, and Ekaterinburg, regarding the introduction by government of new levels of customs tariffs. In areas bordering with Ingushetia of northern Ossetia, to support the security for spring field work, it is proposed to situate stationary posts of the Republican Ministry of Internal Affairs. As Interfax reports, in addition, along the border, on patrol will be moving mechanized firing installations. However, according to the representatives of authorities, these measures cannot fully alleviate the peasants of the sense of fear, which was inspired by the murder last year on these fields of 8 workers. On the rest of the territory of Russia, concern is caused by completely different factors. It is time to begin the sowing season, but there is no money. People are asking for money, salary, at least small advances. And so begins the day of the chairman of the Auctioneer Society, Gusievsk, Anatoly Grigorievich Trifonov. We need clothes to renew inventory. Someone has a wedding. Relatives have arrived. There are various expenses. Trifonov was always a trifle thrifty, preferred not to spoil with pace, but invest more into the plant. But even today his heart bleeds because people are asking for their own honestly earned bread. We managed to preserve the manufacturing of milk and meat in the same volume as we had been producing before. That means we've preserved the level of productivity. We're not working worse, but we have less money, and the consumers can't pay more because they also have no money. So this is the situation. And what is the way out? The way out, in my opinion, must be to examine what's happening in the processing sector, why the products are issued so expensive from there, 5 to 6 times higher than our salaries. And we ask, where are the trillions which the government allotted to the agrarians? We'll answer, Gosievsky received 4 million. 1 tractor costs 10 million. So will we be planting this year? It seems the opposition has finally entrenched itself in the thought that the theatrical square in Moscow is the best place for mass demonstration. The opposition calendar now includes a new red date, the 17th of March, the 3rd anniversary since the referendum on the fate of the USSR, and to this was devoted the traditional fiery speech of the advocate for the restoration of the Soviet Union, Sasha Malatova. The Secretary General of the Communists at True Bolshevik, Viktor Trozhin, called for the restoration of the USSR by first restoring Soviet power through revolution. The orders had no embarrassment in using any phrases against the current authorities. And so they ended up in a river of curses against Yeltsin, Kravchuk, Shevardnadze, and even Ivan Rybkin for agreeing with the authorities. Applause met the approach on the tribune of Sergei Baburin. In the program, in the evening also there will be the Soviet hymn heard and the sale of opposition newspapers and nostalgic memories of fraternity, unity of the people. And they've given us nothing new, they cried out. Probably this is true. Nothing else was given to them. Today, the information agencies conveyed from Vladivostok News that the law enforcing organs have implemented force to remove the mayor of the city, Viktor Cherepkov, from the mayor's building. The administration of the Primorsk area yesterday issued a resolution to dismiss Cherepkov from his post on the basis of documents presented by the prosecutor's office in which it states that against him criminal charges were filed according to the statute 170, Part 3 on bribery. According to certain reports, the supporters of the deposed mayor attempted to act in protest, but according to the district administration, the majority of citizens reacted to the dismissal of Cherepkov with relief. Commenting on the events, the head of the administration of the President of Russia, Sergei Filatov, called the news on the social disturbances nothing more than unjustified conflagration of passions. In an interview to Tata, Sergei Filatov said that today he met with the Minister of Internal Affairs of Russia, and Viktor Yerin informed him that in Vladivostok an operation was conducted on deblocking the building of the mayor and prevention of disorder. At 1400 hours Moscow time, Viktor Cherepkov left the mayor's building. Social order in the city is being restored. As the Center of Information and Social Contacts of the Prosecutor General of Russia informed, today an order of the acting Prosecutor General, Alexei Ilyushenko, has had the case, and the criminal charges against the mayor of Vladivostok Cherepkov was taken over by the senior investigator on especially sensitive matters in the prosecutor's office. Those who arrived for the auction on the sale of municipal property for sale here are the most unprofitable stores. Were not surprised by the news that the completion of transactions is being postponed by 10 days. Someone in the crowd was hopeful that documents for a store that they intended to buy were already pocketed because of a bribe taken by an official April, the racketeers managed to discourage competitors. The matter is a formality. Someone did perhaps know, but altogether they did not suspect that on the eve, the employees of the regional department on the battle with organized crime with a bribe and a package of more than 5 million rubles and weapons, obviously detained one of the leaders of the fund of property of the city of Voronezh. And so it happened that the documents prepared for the auction had to be discarded and the event cancelled. The plotter was arrested. Criminal charges have been laid, which promises to be quite loud. The Prosecutor General of Russia today also announced that criminal charges have been dropped on the case of the attempt of sale abroad by various commercial organizations, including the concern Promekologia from Ekaterinburg, of a so-called red mercury. Based on the conclusions of the expertise of prominent chemists and physicists, the investigation came to a unilateral conclusion on the unreality of the existence of a substance under the name of red mercury. And now about the war with crime in the West. It turns out this problem there is no less severe than here. And so that means there's something to learn on the experience of others. And how to protect an automobile from thieves. This question is before our automobile owners and is actual in the West as well. In France alone, daily 900 automobiles are stolen. And that means approximately 1/3 of a million a year. The current means of electronic and other security systems cannot reliably protect the owners from this plight. And even certain insurance companies here, carrying great losses, have begun to refuse their clients insurance against auto theft. Of course, this is not a solution. A unique approach was adopted in France, where participating in the solution were the automobile manufacturers and insurance companies. Under the auspices of the Ministry of Economics, they concluded a convention that on plants, on models which are in highest demand among carjackers, there would be installed special electronic coded anti-theft system, excluding the possibility of starting the automobile's engine. The price of such a car will be much higher. And here the insurance companies are joining in, each decreasing the cost of its insurance depending on the level of the protection of the automobile. And even this is not a panacea against theft. To reduce them to a minimum can only happen by the harshening of measures of punishment for such crimes, which in France today do not exceed 3 years of imprisonment. The conclusion is clear. We need an overall resolution of the problem in automobile theft with the aid of preventative and punitive measures, the latter of which is only on the conscience of the government. Completing the official visit to Ukraine was the President of the Estonian Republic, Lennart Meri, and then there was a conclusive press conference of the presidents of both countries. President Meri and President Kravchuk agreed that after the Kiev meetings and the signing of joint documents, a more active cooperation in economic areas will begin. But for now, unfortunately, Ukraine, in foreign trade balance of Estonia, is only in 7th place. There was also a question heard. What do the presidents think about the intentions of Russia to protect the interests of the Russian-speaking population in other countries? I hope very much that Russian politicians, for whom so valuable is the problem of human rights, will find time to work on these rights within Russia itself. What regards Estonia, I want to assure you that in Estonia, human rights are guaranteed to each person and for all, not depending on nationality. I think it would be a better formulation for Russia, although I don't expect that Russia will accept it, is not the defense of rights, but the participation of Russia in providing the rights of Russians. Because there is a problem here, but participation is the answer. A wave of refugees is beginning to drown Volgograd. Today, these are mainly Russian families from Tajikistan, Chechnya, and Georgia. They daily storm city services, hoping to receive assistance, mostly financial. However, the local budget, which is almost non-existent, cannot deal with this problem. And in the subsidies of 1,200,000 rubles per family of 4 people to acquire an apartment does not in any way correspond to current prices. I think that on a government level, one must adopt a rigid quota, as exists in civilized countries. And this statute must be absolutely foreseen in the federal budget so as not to create excessive nervousness among people who are standing in line for housing. On the 16th of March, after a brief illness, in his 67th year, the true member of the Russian Academy of Agricultural Industrial Sciences, the president of the League of Cooperators and Entrepreneurs of Russia, Vladimir Alexandrovich Tikhonov. Condolences on the death of the scientist and social activists were expressed by the president, Boris Yeltsin. The number 2 man in Japanese government, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Japan, Tsutomu Mukhatov, on the 19th to 21st of March will visit Moscow. This was officially stated today by the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is expected the official meeting will include the talks of the Japanese minister with the head of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Andrei Kozyrev, and that will occur on the 21st of March. At the meeting of the countries participating in the peacekeeping operations of the UN in former Yugoslavia, 15 countries announced readiness to supply supplementally 4,250 Blue Berets, the majority of which will be sent to Bosnia. The largest supplementary contingent is being sent by Great Britain. Behind her is France, and in third place is Ukraine. The Pope of Rome welcomed in the Vatican the Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin. During the meeting, they discussed the progress of the peaceful regularization in the Middle East. Rabin became the first head of the Israeli government who visited the Vatican after reaching the historical agreement to restore official two-sided relations, which was concluded in Jerusalem the 30th of December of last year. Meanwhile, on Israeli-occupied territories, clashes continue between the local Arab population and Israeli forces. During the last day in the Gaza sector, 60 Palestinians were injured and 2 more Arabs were shot. According to the statement of the representative of the Israeli army, they were killed after they opened fire on Israeli military patrols. Today, Solidarność pickets the saying against the law of the control of the increase of salaries. Tomorrow, the leader of the union, Miriam Shatlevsky, will meet with the Prime Minister. Discussion will be in an ultimatum form, and if the government does not make concessions, then the all-Polish act of protest, according to his words, will grow like an avalanche. And it's more than a week the acts of solidarity have been underway. They, of course, reflect on the economy. However, they haven't yet acquired a national character. And this was the Warsaw part of the railroad on the day when Solidarność announced that for 10 hours throughout the entire country it would stop all trains. But the trains went nonetheless. The machinists who refused to strike even drove trains when striking railway workers turned red lights on the railway signals. The Solidarność announced 2-hour stoppages did not take place in industries, and even though on walls placards hung, "We're on strike." Strikes have become unpopular. Only 1/3 of Poles feel that they can bring success. But everything was different in the 1980s when Solidarność, with powerful blows, defeated the former regime. 90% of the population supported it then. Its symbols were a hope for a better future. And this is the last Congress of Solidarność. Lech Walesa is an honorary guest. One of the delegates directly warns the president that if the situation for employees will continue to deteriorate, the president will have to flee from the presidential palace, having changed into a woman's dress. The former leader of Solidarność became the personification of reforms which were accompanied by the stratification of society into the rich and poor, growth in unemployment, destructing in the industrial sector, and the decline in healthcare, education, and culture. Solidarność is again protesting. Its workers are demanding the right of the worker to a dignified life. Its leaders probably hope to return to the organization the former role on a common national political stage. Such a sudden and overwhelming flooding as in the current spring in Vnyezhevek hasn't been seen in 40 years. The waters have covered a territory of an area of more than 40,000 hectares, where in villages and towns there are more than 1,000 people. The water with ice sheets damaged telephone and electricity lines. In the emergency area, military vehicles which arrive to bring food and medications, but because of the frozen barriers cannot pass everywhere. As of yesterday, the flood waters in the delta delta of the Neman. In the area near the bridge Ponimony-Sovetsk in the Kaliningrad district, the water is more than 7.5 meters. The evacuation of people on city transportation has been stopped because the level of water on roads is more than 1.5 meters. The Government Commission on Emergency Situations at a session adopted a decision on additional measures to ensure the safety of the population in the flooded Lithuanian waterfront areas. Tomorrow it will be 150 years since the birthday of Rimsky-Korsakov. Time has no power over the music of Rimsky-Korsakov. So many years have passed, and today it still finds its way to the hearts of people. The compositions of the talented artist are so expressive and graphic, so that one can almost see the domes of ancient churches, and floating over the river, sunny rays. One hears the tolling of spring bells. And this small provincial town, Tikhvin, left a bright track in the art of the composer. Here, his bright childhood took place and passed. Here he listened to stories, parables, ditties, and folk songs. And years later, instead, the sounds were heard with Sadko and the city Kitish and other compositions. In Tikhvin, young Nico dreamed not of music, but of seas and distant voyages. In Petersburg, he finished the cadet corps and set sail on the clipper Almaz, and in the northern capital he met there with Palatiev and Musorsky. With exhilaration, the residents of Petersburg met the first symphony of the young naval officer. 15 operas later, tens of plays, cantatas, romances created by the composer entered the Gold Fund of Musical Art. The great artist embodied in them his ideals, the striving toward goodness, harmony, truth. To the service of Russia, devoted were the works of the life of Rimsky-Korsakov. In one moment, the program of the sports will be continued by Anatoly Malyavin. With this, I wish you all the best. Goodbye.
Московская недвижимость всегда в цене. Чековый МН-пост, Ленинский проспект, дом 4, Цветной бульвар, дом 2.
Я всегда платил деньгами.
Сегодня он использует вексель Тверь Универсал Банка.
Вексель везде принимают. И более того, я не только не теряю проценты, но и получаю от Тверь Универсал Банка специальную премию.
Поэтому вексель лучше денег.
Ну сколько же можно размышлять? Лучше надеть Симот и пройти. Даже свобода выбирает Симот. Звоните 166 27 96.
Что это за история? Быть может, это история горького одиночества.
Или это история несчастного влюбленного?
Или это история вооруженного ограбления?
Нет, это веселая, блистательная, великолепная история счастливого приобретения акций АО МММ.
Hello. Such scenes you can see only in a terrible nightmare. I don't know how Spartak slept last night and what they dreamt of after the catastrophe in Spain, but unfortunately our champion could not keep up against Barcelona. And the League of Champions, obviously, is still out of reach for our champions. But I quote, "No one has lost respect to the Russians. They play high-quality soccer," said the trainer of Barcelona, Johan Cruyff. And so the spring Spartak, it is a different Spartak from the summer and winter Spartak, who is mobile and aggressive. But defeat is a lesson for the future. Class beats passion. One of the truths of soccer was affirmed on the fields of Istanbul. The Monacos played with the passionate Turkish players in the first time and decided the fate in the second minute in favor of Barcelona. Shefo hit the second ball And Barcelona and Monaco now have 6 points. In the second group, the favorite is Italian Milan. Against the Bremen soccer players, he was prepared to squeeze out Werder. And also the score was opened in the second time after the 11-meter shot by the German Ruffel. And then the respective goal led to the score of 1-1. Milan is quite calm right now. Werder, Porto and Anderlecht, however, must still decide the question. Will it be with 1 unknown and 2 extra in the semi-final? The Portugal team is against the Belgian Anderlecht, and at the 9th minute they achieved success. The attack was by Drulovic, and a few seconds later, before the final whistle, there was a hit by Sekretar, 2-0 for Porto, and it's in second place. Monica Selic, the tennis player from Serbia who hasn't played in tournaments for almost a year after an attack on her, received American citizenship together with her mother, information HRTAS. Now we'll congratulate the Lada hockey players. For the first time in the hockey games, the Tagliatis have become first. The championship, Lada won 1 tour before the end of the International Hockey Leagues, winning in Usk-Minogorsk against Torpedoes 7-1. Success of the trainer Gennady Tsiburov. And other 8 matches from HRTAS Sport, 5 wins for the hosts. Before the finish of the championship of the International Hockey League, there's only 1 tour remaining. Good evening. The Atlantic cyclones continue to bring warm air into the European territory of Russia. According to the Meteorological Center of Russia, the weather in the area of northwest Russia will be influenced by a Scandinavian cyclone. In the Kursk Peninsula, Karelia, Leningrad, Vologorsk, Arkhangelsk, and the Republic of Komi, it will be partly cloudy with some wet snow and rain. The temperature at night, -2, -7, during the day, -2, +3. In prepolar Ural, in the east of the Republic of Komi and Nenetsk Autonomous District, it will be colder. Temperatures at night, -8, -13, during the day, -3, down to -8. In the Baltic countries and Kaliningrad, it is partly cloudy with some weak precipitation. During the night, 0, +3, during the day, +3, +8. In the northwest central and central Chernozem regions, will be under low pressure, which will spread to the lower Don area. We're expecting intermittent cloudiness, wet snow and rain. Temperature at night, 0, -5, during the day, 0, +5. In the central Volga and the Volgovyatsk region, in the zone of atmospheric fronts, it is cloudy, with some snow. During the night, -2, -7, during the day, 0. In the south of Russia, it will be windy but warm weather. On the lower Don, in the northern Caucasus and the lower Volga, there will be rains. Winds will grow stronger to 8 to 12 meters per second. The temperature at night, +3, +8. During the day, +8, +13. On the Black Sea coast, up to +16 degrees. In Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova, in the zone of anticyclones, there is intermittent cloudiness without precipitation. During the night, 0, +3. During the day, +4, +9. In the south of Ukraine and Moldova, down up to +15. Beyond the Caucasus, it will be under a low pressure area, expecting cloudiness with rain. During the night, +2, +7. During the day, 8, +13. Petersburg, tomorrow cloudy with some precipitation. The winds from the southwest, 5 to 8 meters per second. During the night, -2, -4. During the day, +1, +3. In Moscow, partly cloudy, some precipitation. The winds from the southwest, 4 to 7 meters per second. During the night, -2, -4. During the day, +3, +5. The roads are icy. All the best.